First of all, don't be stupid the way we were. Don't deprioritize this. This is the most important marketing activity you can do. Documenting and celebrating and distributing the wins that you get as a service provider is like literally the number one thing you can do. That's the first thing. What I think we should have done, and what I would actually recommend people do, is have a process for case studies. A process means that the objective of every client engagement should be ultimately to publish a case study. It should be like there should be no clients that have no case studies. I think the effort required to close the sale is inversely proportional to the number of case studies you have.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about case studies. And I understand, George, that you have been not pushing us, like incentivizing us internally to think more about case studies and why it's crucial to kind of do as much as you can, as fast as you can when you have results. Like, why are you doing that internally for us, like pushing us to this limit, like, hey, have a case study at least each and every week?
Because historically, I've been extremely stupid about it, and we have not been posting case studies at all. So what you see is me overcorrecting months of silence when it comes to case studies. And the reason why case studies are important as a whole, like more broadly, is because it's your currency. It's your trust currency, really, right? Like when you have a conversation with any brand or even a partner, really, not just the brand, everybody wants to know, like, okay, you talk the talk, but can you drive results? Can you walk the walk, in other words? And for us in particular, the big challenge is that because we've been so focused on driving results and so not focused on communicating the results that we drive, that we've ultimately created this massive gap between the work that we do and the case studies that we have to show for, which is insane. As you know very well, Yocto has been making this switch to focus specifically on subscription-based businesses. That's been our core focus. That's been what we've been trying to do. And then you look at our case studies and there's not a subscription focus there, but we are doing subscription-based work. So it's not that we don't know how to drive results. We've actually driven results. You've driven results. All of our strategies have driven results, exceptional results. It's just that we haven't formally taken the time to document and spread this, which is the equivalent of, again, as I said, being stupid, really, in the business that we're in, because this is the entry point to any future. I'm actually a little bit surprised, to be honest, how we've been able to win new business, to be honest with you, because we haven't been publishing case studies in a very long time.
And when you talk about new business, did you is this something that clients prospected and like possible clients ask for? Like, do you face a challenge when it comes to that?
So I think I'll give you a nuanced answer. I think the effort required to close the sale is inversely proportional to the number of case studies you have. And not just case studies, the credibility. Case studies are a part of being credible, ultimately. It can be recommendations, testimonials, there can be all sorts of things. Now, we've been lucky, and that partially perhaps explains how we are winning business without having done the best at producing and communicating case studies recently. We've been lucky to get a lot of introductions and a lot of referrals. And there's this overall chatter in the industry that Yocto does good work, or Yocto is reliable, or bring Yocto when your agency can't actually solve the problem you have. So there's been a lot of that going on, which again adds to your credibility bank, which means it's easier to close deals. But the broader you go and the bigger you're trying to become, and as you know, we are actively pushing right now to grow as a company, the more outside your network you have to be, the less people will know about you. And then the audience doesn't really know that you are doing good work, doesn't have somebody recommending you to kind of color you in a positive way so that they believe what you recommend. And in that sense, it's extremely important to have the case studies. Like, in other words, if we were to run advertising right now and use advertising to convert new clients, it would be impossible unless we had rock solid case studies and results to show, which again, we do have the work. It's just not published, which is like the most insane thing you can be doing. And I think the purpose of this episode really is to just like let people know, don't make the same mistake we did. Every win that you get, you have to document, and you have to document, if nothing else, so that there's visibility internally about the good work that's being done, so that people can learn from each other, so that there's movement between the different teams that you have. In other words, the brilliance of Mo or the brilliance of Max or George or whoever else should be seen by others so that they start learning from each other. If this is all happening in a silo, then you're basically diminishing the learning that you can have as a team and the impact that you can have on the clients consequently. So it's honestly, I would say one of our biggest misses so far, especially as I said, since we've been having this niche down positioning, which I mean, there's not that many agencies that do subscription based in health and wellness in Shopify and Klaviyo. There's a lot of companies that touch this vertical, but not a lot of companies that specialize in this. And if you specialize in this, you better have something to back it up, which is again why I'm pushing so hard to publish case studies.
One question could come to someone who's hearing this. I have just 10 clients. Okay, once I publish 10 case studies, am I done? Like, what should I do? Like, and it probably there is a limit to it. Do you think this is correct?
No, I think it's not correct. In hindsight, what I think we should have done, and what I would actually recommend people do, is have a process for case studies. A process means that the objective of every client engagement should be ultimately to publish a case study. It should be like there should be no clients that have no case studies. It should be like the objective from the beginning. That's number one. Number two, when you publish the case study matters also. When do you try to why do I say this? Because ideally you want to get feedback from the client. You want to get a testimonial, a review, like some sort of backing to what you claim to have driven for the business. So usually this happens fairly quickly for us. Like fairly quickly we are able to correct mistakes that are there or find quick wins that the previous team or the previous agents or the in-house team was not able to find. So like within the first 3 months, typically you do have a success story of some sort, which is the perfect moment to get the first case study. Now, what I think is a mistake that agencies do, I mean, we would be the first on the list of people who made it, is that you can publish a case study, but then if you have a long relationship with a client, which we do, we have projects that work with us for years, there's no reason not to publish more in a way. The initial fixes or wins that you drive for them in the first 3, the first 4, 6 months, however long it is, doesn't mean that the good work you do in the next 6 months does not warrant its own case study. So I think it's about being intentional and trying to get wins from the very get-go. And then it's about staying focused on getting wins over time and then publishing even more. So a case study can be based on anything really. And if you see it in that perspective, assuming time and resources are not a factor, which I mean, realistically, they usually are in an agency, but assuming they were not a factor, you could, in theory, be documenting every single out of the ordinary thing you're doing as a case study that drives impact, of course. So there's no reason not to have 4 case studies for one specific matter or 5 case studies. If you've done a loyalty program, if you've done life cycle based subscriptions, if you've done like something amazing for Black Friday, those could be 3 separate case studies. Why limit yourself to one? There's no sense in that.
I guess most of us has this false belief, like the thing that you mentioned, like it's just one case study because I'm gonna get one code from the client, and even thinking about I need to get a code from the client, it puts you in this seat of like you're limiting yourself. What steps do you recommend, or what would be your how to for people to be creating multiple case studies? Do we wait until
Yeah.
we get the result and then we ask the client to publish it and then take a quote from them, or what would be the steps to take to have this multiple case studies from one client other than having actual results? Like this is something else.
Yeah, that's usually necessary, right? You want to
Yeah.
have results. You can't skip that part. So the way our contracts are structured, I don't know if you know this, and the way I think every contract in a service-based relationship should be structured is that there is a clause that says the service provider is able to create a case study without explicit approval by the client. So we have this within all of our contracts, except I think one case where the legal team of the company specifically asked us, hey, like you can't do this without our approval, in which case we amend it. But by default, we have this in our contracts, which ultimately means what? That you can, of course, listen, you always want to be getting approval. You don't want to have a company that hates you or dislikes you or doesn't feel comfortable working with you. And then you don't want to be publishing, oh, like, look at the great work we do, because that's just stupid, right? Like, you don't want this. But from another point of view, every ask that you have of your clients depletes a little bit of energy and goodwill from the relationship that you have with them. So if you're my client and then every week I say, hey, can you leave a review? Can you record a video for me? Or can you take this call? Eventually you're going to be like, hey, like, dude, I like you, I appreciate you, but chill. Like, I can't be doing this every week. So this is a real concern that people may have. But you can have the testimonial and you can have the review on your main flagship case study, and then you can publish your other case studies that are more like self-contained projects. We did this migration from Ometria to Klaviyo, or we launched this new technology and here are the results. You don't need explicit approval and reviews for every single thing. Like this, you can just publish as an agency. Again, assuming that you have permission to do so based on your contractual agreement. So have better contracts, I guess, is the solution here. And then try not to abuse the goodwill of the clients that you have, especially if you have a good relationship with somebody. I think the best way to utilize that relationship is to actually use them as a reference in case somebody in a sales process asks for a reference. That's a much better way to utilize them than asking them to constantly be giving you testimonials and reviews, because yeah, that will get old, and there's also diminishing returns to it, frankly.
Got you. So the clause in the contract, don't be asking for that approval too much. It will diminish the relationship. Maybe just leverage them for a reference. So when it comes to the code, also there is one thing that I've learned here at Yocto I was not seeing before. Maybe because of the technology, also it's helping with that. Is that we have those recordings from the meetings, and AI can be picking up some of the good words that they tell about our work. This can be used as a code as well. So it doesn't have to be like a specific code for, hey, I love you guys and I really appreciate this specific thing that you did as a case study. It can be just some goodwill kind of feedback from the client when a call gets recorded. What would be the best time so that we can start working on the case study? Like, for example, I just wait for the results and then the next week I go work on it, or should I wait on a quarterly basis? What would be the cadence that you would recommend for agencies?
Originally, what I thought we should do, and we even had it on our ClickUp, that was before you and I started working together, was that within our client new client template, which has like certain lists and certain items within, there would be reminders at certain intervals, let's say month 3, to publish a case study. As I said at the beginning, we didn't really succeed in doing this, right? So it's not like it worked. But I think the reason why it didn't work, in addition to us not prioritizing it, is simply because you can't predict what time frame is ideal, right? Like you can't know if by month 3 you're going to have it. Maybe it's going to be month 4. So in that sense, I don't think trying to time it to a specific time constraint makes sense, because it might be just around the corner. And then what, are you not going to publish? Or are you going to publish something that's not good just because you have it on your deadline? No. I think, again, what makes the most sense is to begin every single engagement, every single client that you work with the explicit intention to make them your next best case study. In other words, have a team, and I think we're fairly good at this in Yocto, have a team that cares less about the task list and more so about the outcome of the task list, so that they can focus on getting results. I think that's the ultimate thing. A focus on results and a sense of, let's not walk when we can run, as we say internally.
Got it. And what would be in a very simple kind of framework, how would people need to structure the case study so that it actually appeals to
Yeah.
clients?
So what I think, and it's not like I have a large enough sample size to know if my thought is correct, but the way I think about this, you want to make two things super clear: what was the start point and what was the end point. In other words, a before and after type of comparison. You want to be able to say that I took Mo from this starting point to that end point, or Mo had this pain point, and after he worked with me, he has this desired outcome. Which is basically, if you think about it, it's just how you would be writing any conversion focused copy. It's like pretty straightforward. So I think this is it. This is the key. Before and after. That's the easiest way to convey impact. Usually, like to be a little bit more specific, you want to have a claim like this: we took more from this to this. And then you want to begin with some context. What does Mo do? Like, what was the issue he had? La 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 la. Some information, some key data points about the engagement. In our case, that could be something like, what is the list size, or what is the technology stack, or what is the KPI that we were like targeting to kind of like move. In other cases, it might be ROAS or POAS, or like whatever it is, depending on the type of engagement. And then you want to have an overview of how you accomplished the results that you drove. And from an agency standpoint, what you always want to be doing, and this is becoming increasingly more important, I think, as we enter more and more the age of AI, is that you want to focus on the framework that you're using, not so much on the technical and the tactical implementation. Like so you don't want to say so much that I had a welcome flow that had like 5 emails and blah, 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 because this is not the point. It's not what makes your agency unique. You want to say that we conducted a journey mapping exercise initially, and then we analyzed the post-purchase experience under 3 specific lenses: the transactional, the pre-delivery, and the post-delivery lens. Like that framework-based approach is what ultimately conveys the expertise that you have as a provider, which is what, again, people are increasingly looking for, because the basics and the button pressing part of the gig you can do with AI anymore.
That's a very good structure. I want to ask you now, since you're doing most of the, not most, all of it, the sales kind of calls, and you probably had people ask you about specific, like did it come up before that someone pointed out to a specific case study and asked you about something in it, or just said, I read it and I liked this part, or wanted clarification on a specific part?
It's very interesting that I had the conversation with somebody. I actually don't remember who told me this, but I think they were correct. They told me founders like me are bad at sales because they don't just do sales. They have a lot of different things that they do, so they can't really focus on this. So my experience with sales probably would be vastly different than somebody that only does sales, because I'm not necessarily trained to do sales, and I don't necessarily have the time to do it properly even, right? So the way I tend to do sales is that I have case studies listed, but I don't actually take a prospect through an individual case study line by line and say, oh, this is what we did, this is what we did. So I send them to them and then they can review on their own time. At best, I will go through a quick overview with them that, hey, like we did this and this and this and that for that brand. In that sense, I don't really get questions about specific items within the case studies. But I do know that people do consume content that we don't really know they do. Like just last night, I had a sales call with a company that I had no idea who they were before I spoke to them. And I said, how did you find us? I always ask this. And they said, we found you on LinkedIn. And they specifically called out something that is hidden at the bottom of my bio on LinkedIn. So they did take the time to go through my profile. And that little line, which is that we don't do audits, actually, funnily enough, did get to them. So I don't really get questions, but I do believe people go through them.
Got it. And lastly, because most people, when they heard that we're doing subscription brands, health and wellness, does this mean we should be only just showing case studies in the niche that we want to be attracting, or can we also do case studies in other niches?
So the way I think this should be done is that, first of all, I think people should have a niche. Let's start with this. Even from a valuation perspective, if somebody wants to sell their company, the valuation goes up the more specialized you are. It's like it's a necessity to have a niche in every sense of the word. Now, assuming that you have a very vague or broad niche and that you have like multiple different verticals that you work with and so on, you're not going to delete the other case studies that you have. But ideally, you want to be showing case studies that are relevant. So if you are a CPG business, I should likely not tell you that I can drive results for you because of this case study that I have with a company that sells home products, right? It's totally unrelated. So the more relevant, the better, I would say.
Got it. Any ending words for people who don't have case studies and they want to just start from scratch, or someone who's just starting out and feeling, hey, I don't have that very amazing results? You have some words for those people to encourage them?
First of all, don't be stupid the way we were. Don't deprioritize this. This is the most important marketing activity you can do. Documenting and celebrating and distributing the wins that you get as a service provider is like literally the number one thing you can do. That's the first thing. The second thing, assuming you don't have case studies and you want to get case studies and you don't really have results to produce them. So it's not so much that you haven't taken the time, it's that you actually can't. In that case, I would suggest that, and it's a funny thing these days to work for free, but I would suggest that people do make offers to get themselves through the door in a way that will be low risk to the companies that they speak to so that they do get the chance to have their own success story. For us, much of the success we have as a company is based on the success story that I had as an individual working with Kilo Health. And the success that I had with Kilo Health, much of it is based on the success I had at Div Brands. So there's a success story component there that gave me the credibility and frankly the know-how to be able to do something. Unless you have this, then you can't really go very far. So give yourself the opportunity to do this by making it very hard for people to say no to your services.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time, George. I really appreciate it. And I hope this was encouraging for someone who's just doubting the priority of this. As you mentioned, don't make the same mistake that we did. And looking forward to speaking to you next week, George. Any last thoughts? I think you have something in mind.
I do have something on my mind, and I guess it's more to so that people don't feel bad. Like as I said, we've been making this mistake for a very long time, and I'd say generally we're fairly smart people. So it's very easy to get lost in the weeds and deprioritize or lose sight of what's important. Don't let it get to you. Mistakes happen. Get on with it and start publishing.
Start publishing. All right. Let's end it with that. Thanks for your time, George. See you next time.
Merci.